Welcome back to Good Day. I'm here with Cheryl Kaiser from Insight Psychotherapy, and we want to talk a little bit about some of the psychological things that go on when you are a member of the military. And of course, the one that's talked about the most is post-traumatic stress syndrome. Can you explain for us exactly what that is? Because it gets, a lot of people talk about it, but sometimes it gets confusing.
Sure. Well, post-traumatic stress is actually, we call it a psychological problem, but it's also got a very physical component to it. So basically you have two little sections in your brain. If I drew my finger and touched my brain just up on the underside, there's two little sections called the hippocampus and the amygdala. The hippocampus encodes memory, and the amygdala makes fear reactions start to happen. So what happens is that the memory of the fear kind of gets encoded together and it can't kind of get broken apart. And that's what really causes a post-traumatic stress reaction to occur.
So what are some ways that you can help with that?
Well, there are medications that can help with post-traumatic stress. It really makes a big difference for somebody to get treatment. They need counseling. They need individual and group counseling to try to talk through those types of situations and sort of reprogram so that the programming that happened in that memory of the fear can maybe get changed out, and there can be a coding of some other type of memory so that the fear doesn't kick in every time something happens that triggers it.
What about the biggest misconceptions of PTSD?
Well, I think there are a lot of times where we've seen back in history that PTSD maybe was considered not real or shell shock or whatever, and in reality it's very real. We can see it on PET scans, we can see it on all kinds of different manifestations of behaviors and all types of things that happen that respond to other types of treatment modalities. This is a very real type of illness, and it affects people and for a very long time.
We're going to come back to learn more about PTSD and some of the psychological things other than that soldiers have to deal with and their families. Right now, let's go on over to Sasha. We're back with Cheryl Kaiser from Insight Psychotherapy, and we left off kind of explaining what PTSD is, post-traumatic stress syndrome, but now we want to talk about the families of those with this. What is it that they experience?
Well, it's a really tough thing for a family to have a person be deployed because you get this sort of routine going in your household, then this individual gets deployed, and now you have to have a whole new routine without them there, and then when they come back again you have to have a new routine to integrate them back into the household. So there's a lot of adjustment that has to occur, and also it's important to kind of keep the thought and the idea of that individual who's deployed alive and well and really there in the family and in the household every day.
Yeah. What is some advice that you would give to some of the spouses out there who are dealing with someone who is gone right now?
It's so tough. It's important to seek help. Don't feel like you have to do it alone. You don't have to feel lonely. You don't have to feel like you're by yourself. There's always, on every base, there are always things that are in place to assist families who are in the process of a deployment. There are things to assist children. There are groups. There are all kinds of things that can be accessed. So don't just try to go it alone.
Yeah. And Chris talked a little bit earlier about the military men and women coming back and getting back into civilian life. What are some of the mental things that go on when that occurs?
It's such a huge transition. You know, you go from being with all these folks that you are kind of living and dying with on a daily basis, and then you have to come back home and it's a completely different culture. It's a completely different place. You have to find your place every time you leave and every time you come back. So it's kind of a challenge to not only find their place in the home, but to find their place in the community and within the family and, within the base that they're going to be working on as well. So there's a lot of transitions that individual has to go through. And I think it's very helpful to think about it in terms of home being the home base and, base being a different base and deployment being another base. And so there's kind of different activities and cultures that happen at each one of the bases.
Very good thoughts. Thank you for joining us this morning and giving us some insight. Insight Psychotherapy. Cheryl Kaiser. We'll be right back.